I'm very excited to be here to share some of my experience with all of y'all.
Cool. Thanks, Jen. And as you're hearing, for all the attendees, if there's any question you have in mind or you want me to ask Jen, put it in the chat. But Jen, first question, cloud, co-sell, go-to-market. What does that mean to you? And what are the ingredients you need to have in place? Because there's a lot of misnomer what that ingredients look like. Go ahead, tell me more about it.
Yeah, I think of the cloud co-sell GTM. You are in a kitchen, creating baking a cake. So first of all, before I talk about all of the key ingredients, first of all, the joint GTM is about creating a new offering. A new offering that drives the better customer outcomes, right, than what you would normally do individually. So in order to do this, what I have actually seen, from my experience, is three key ingredients that I want to share with all of you today. The first one, many of the panelists already spoke about it. I think the first one that's very important, I would say, is the aligning or the better together story. That is the most critical ingredient that's needed. How do we tell the better together story? That is the 1 + 1 = 3. In my experience with AWS, I've met with like hundreds of partners, whether it is ISVs, consulting partners, or SIs, where I've seen them is struggling in creating the joint messaging, right? They're struggling in how much of the messaging should be their messaging versus, the hyperscalers messaging. Is it 80-20, 50-50? So I think number one is the joint value prop, which I think you all will agree as well. Number two ingredient, I would say, is the executive sponsorship. I cannot emphasize this. You absolutely need, from the highest levels of the organization, their support on your GTM plan, but otherwise your co-sell plan will not get off the ground, right? So I'm sure you all would have experiences from your experience as well. The third key one, having built several plans with the ISV execs, I would say I can speak really from experience on this one, that a joint GTM plan, a co-sell plan, a robust plan is important. This plan, I firmly believe it should be a plan where all parties are involved, which many panelists already spoke about earlier as well. And we all need to be speaking the same language, like singing from the same song sheet, right? And working towards the same common goal, like how to do co-marketing or defining your pipeline goals, or even when to co-sell. So I would say those three. I mean, there are other ingredients, but these three are the critical ones, I would say, Chai.
Very well said. I think you explained it so well. The joint value prop, the executive sponsorship, and joint go-to-market plan. Now talk about what are the common challenges when seeking the go-to-market funding and how can they be overcome? Because I know those things, let's say I did it, but then how do you go find the money for it?
Great question, because frugality is one of our LP as well, right? And many of us have seen some of these challenges currently in our with the given economy and so on. So I think in my role today, what I see, number one challenge is the demonstrating ROI. I would say this goes back in, as I mentioned earlier, having a detailed plan, right? That's super important. This plan can really help you to forecast KPIs, right? Because I'm sure you will agree that it's a lot easier to say yes to someone who has a well-defined goal, right? That drive value for both the parties involved, right? Not just it's one-sided, but it's both parties involved. So I think number one challenge is demonstrating ROI, and that's how I would overcome that. Second, what I've seen over and over again with the partners is the number two thing is the lack of alignment on lead management, right? Many of you are already working with AWS. So today, AWS requires partners to submit ops to AWS through a system. And what I've seen is there's often challenges around lead definitions from the partner side, right? They might be saying one thing differently and we might be saying something differently. So identifying an owner, ensuring there's alignment on definitions, alignment on data. So information is submitted, on a timely manner. I think that is very critical. And one of the best practice I would emphasize, that I continue to emphasize to the community and to the partner ecosystem, is to align on these things early on, right? So it completely doesn't become a roadblock when you're seeking funding. The third and the most critical one, I would say, is greenfield, right? I'm sure you're all going behind greenfield acquisition at this point of time. Sometimes it could be super difficult for us to bet on completely a new potential area, and because it's difficult to get support there, right? How I overcome this is by doing research, support your data, your hypothesis with your research and data, do market analysis, look for trends, talked about a lot of acquisitions earlier as well. And so again, honing in on those three challenges and how to overcome it, demonstrate ROI, lack of alignment on lead management and how to overcome that. Second one is how you can get funding for a greenfield opportunity as well.
Jen, very well said. I think I captured all the three: demonstrating ROI, lack of alignment on the lead definition, and also the greenfield acquisition and the hypothesis that is required. Now, let's say I got all those challenges. Now tell me, what are the key factors to be considered when formulating my investment proposal for go-to-market efforts in the context of the co-sell motion, leveraging marketplace and digital marketing? Very specific activities we need to do. And how do we get the money for it?
Great question, because marketplace is a big route to market right now, and it's a buzzword, and everyone talks about their marketplace right now, right? I think the number one thing as you're building the plan is to figure out, does your partner have a marketplace first strategy, right? And understanding what the sales motion is. Is it private offers or is it self-service? Because let's all be very honest, because both require a completely different set of marketing efforts. Private offers require different marketing efforts. Self-service motion require completely different as well, right? Trying to figure that one is very critical. The number one factor I would say very critical is the funnel metrics that I touched on earlier as well, right? The full funnel metrics. The wins are very, very important when you're formulating a proposal, but not just wins, but how you get there is also important to show that you have all the ducks in the row, right? Determine the number of wins that you need in order to get to your GTM driven revenue, right? And then work backwards, right? How many ops is needed? How many leads is needed? Go through the entire funnel, your MQL, your SQL, and your SQOs, your leads, your visitors, and so on, right? And then also determining what's your conversion rate, because most of the partners that I meet with, they don't have a historical data, right? If they are startups or a rising star ISV, they don't have a historical data. But putting together a robust forecast will help you to get that funding as well. And it'll also help you to ensure that you're delivering on your promises. And you can iterate on your plan by having this full funnel, metrics outlined and so on, right? So that would be the number two factor. Number three, I would say, as I mentioned, getting your exact support is very, very important. And tools to measure Oh, sorry, I'm hearing an echo on myself. I hope you all can hear me still. The tools is very, very important, right? How you're going to measure your progress every step of the way, showing how you're going to turn the plan into a complete reality, right? Execution owners and operational alignment is I would say, another key factor. And align on expectations. I think that would be the number four that I would call out as well. What are you hoping the co-sell motion will bring? Is it net new logos? Is it penetrating new industries? Or I would say some of the ISVs that I have seen is they want to penetrate new markets, right? We call them as a cross-border ISVs. So some of the ISVs want to expand their footprint from other regions into North America, right? So ensuring that your collaboration meets needs on both sides is very important, right? So align on those expectations early on. I think I would say that's another key factor. The last one I would say, going back to what Chai was talking about, marketplace, is having the sales incentives, right, for your reps to be incentivized to sell your new solution, or at least, very least, not losing money. I think that is another key factor to talk about. And then the digital marketing motion, as I mentioned earlier, if it's private office, self-service, is a completely different motion. I can chat more if you're interested on a separate call as well. But I just want to leave you all with those 4 factors.
Oh, well said, Jen. I'm like writing notes, like furiously writing notes is kind of having the approach of how you do it. Second is the funnel metrics, making sure you have the end-to-end funnel metrics and the tools. We already talked about Workspan of how they are doing automation of the technology. So there are others, but they are definitely on the top, and they have moved around $50 billion of money through that infrastructure. So it is robust. And the last one I would say is kind of focusing on why you're doing the co-sell. Jen, can you share some examples of successful go-to-market funding strategies that was effective for joint customer acquisition?
Yeah, I mean, there's several stories that I can talk about, but without naming any names here. Again, the first thing I would emphasize again is fully integrate the cloud hyperscaler into your business strategy, right? Meaning bringing them into your events and your promotions and so on. So there is one a security ISV partner who did all of these things, co-branding their assets, creating new assets as well, and creating the joint messaging that I talked about earlier, help them to really move from the bottom of the radar to having more visibility and awareness internally within our organization as well, right? So help them to get the highest number of opportunities and wins just by integrating those in-person events and other things that I talked about. So that's one success. The other success that I can think about right now is, I would say a social campaign which helped this partner to land several net new logos. This campaign, again, how we did is brought in a speaker. We did like a 3-party. We identified a joint customer win, and it was a 3-way panel. And I mean, it's not a rocket science. I'm sure you're all doing that as well. The key thing here is we had a speaker from our side join in the panel. The partner really found more number of registrations, lower CPL, lower cost per lead, and a higher conversion rate than what that partner would have historically had, right? So I think, again, I want to underline the importance of fully integrating the cloud hyperscaler into your business strategy. It's the fundamental.
Well said. I completely agree. Like that full integration is so critical, Jen. After looking at a lot of the founders go to market, they will do for a quarter and they'll forget the rest 3 quarters. I'm like, no, this has to be a continuous flow. It has to be an engine. It has to be a system that needs to be put together. And I think people don't forget that marketing is an ever-on engine, and hyperscalers expect you to do it. Coming to your last question, I know you have like a time constraint. What are like the KPIs and metrics that can be effectively used to attract the go-to-market funding?
Yeah, because I'm doing this day in and day out, always tin cupping and asking for funds, either it's internally or even externally with partners to invest more. What I have seen is few key critical metrics. I think number one for me, what it has worked is focusing again on the full funnel goals, right, and conversion rates from each lead stage. And I think this is where most of the partners fail. They just track like one metric in the funnel, but I think measuring it at the every stage is very important. Number two, also consider your CPL and conversion rates, right, to demonstrate that ROI, which is these two is super critical. The other metrics that we also look into is say, for example, the revenue, month over month, increase your recurring revenue. It's very important. The CSAT scores of the partners is important. Renewal rate is important as well. And customer acquisition cost is another metrics that I'm measuring today. And time to sale, meaning time to win, and also time it becomes an opportunity. Like how many days does it take, like from a lead to an opportunity, or from a lead to a win, right? Most partners don't measure this. It's been a very interesting conversation for me to have with several partners. So I think that is another key metrics that I'm also looking to measure, which is time to sale. So I think those, I would say, Chai, is some of the key KPIs and metrics that could be very effective for the partners.
Jen, the last 15 minutes is absolutely gold, like gold for business owners. If they understood what you are saying, it will be like breakthrough for them.